Hello, thanks for joining me today. My name is Joe. Welcome to my studio. Today I want to talk about the second light that I always use in a portrait shoot. I don't do a portrait shoot indoors at all anymore without at least two flashes. Outside, I'll talk about how I work with one flash in that kind of situation, but inside, as today's kind of cold outside, I wouldn't want to do a portrait out there anyway. Today we're going to be working inside, and I want to be able to set up a nice portrait, but I always need two lights. Now my first one, of course, is my primary light, and that's this right here. It's my flash. It's inside of my softbox, and it produces a perfectly nice shot, right? But I always have a second light source in all of my shoots, and the first thing you might think is always lighting as background, but as you're going to see here, I'm working with a black background. So when I have a black background and I shoot a subject with darker hair, there is always a concern, and that is that the subject's hair is going to start to just kind of bleed into the background. Now, I'm going gray faster than I really want to, and so my hair tends to stand out a little bit better than some with a black background, but you're going to be faced with this, wanting to do a low-key or a black or dark background shot and still make sure that you get separation of the subject's hair from the rest of the background and from the environment. So how do we do that? And it's going to be with a hair light. So as you can see, when you shoot the photograph of me, it's not that my head completely disappears into the background. With some subjects, it might be like that. With some, you get a little bit better natural separation with your primary lights, but I like to give just that little bit of separation, glow, and double check that the whole head has a nice outline from the background, even if your subject has darker hair. And the way we do that was with an additional light. So I light with a hair light in every portrait that I do these days. Always. And the first thing we might think of that we want to do is just take and light at the subject. But what if it's shooting at like a pretty wide angle, right? Flash is spread pretty wide, and that means you'll get a lot of spill over the shoulders and light that doesn't hit the subject and flares back into the lens, and then you've got lens glare issues, and you're wasting a lot of that light too. It's being spread out, being dispersed, and you're not actually lighting your subject that much. So we might take the flash and zoom the light into 105 millimeters, and that only does so much. Realistically, what you want to do is shoot and in some way grid that guy down so that it's an even tighter beam of light. Now there's things called snoots, and that's just something that's like an inverse funnel. And we just funnel something into a small beam directly at from the light source outside. But I like to use a grid on my snoot, and so these are little grid plates that go into a snoot that I have from Rogue. And you put the two of them together and you have the 16-degree angle of light coming out of the flash, which is a really, really small degree of light. So I like to stack these guys together into this really small angle of light. And then what we're going to do is we take it and we just create this little snoot that goes over to the front of the flash. Now, there are all different types of these, and in some way having something that constricts the beam of light is really what you care about. So the mechanism that you use to do it isn't as important as the concept itself, because I don't want a lot of light spilling over my shot. I want it to be a very subtle effect. I don't want it to be this big dramatic effect. So I'm going to take that. That's now my flash, snap it right onto my light stand. And then you always light your hair light from kind of above. It simulates sunlight. So we go kind of higher than the subject. We lower that guy to that kind of degree. And we're just going to move this to the corner. So now when we do the next portrait, we're going to get a little bit of extra glow around the head. We're going to get some extra glow around the shoulders. It's not going to be a giant effect. We want it to be a very subtle one. So that's what we're going to see next. So as you can see, when we are lighting in the studio, a hair light is really nice for separating subject from background, especially if you're working with a darker background. Now, I still use them for white backgrounds, for neutral backgrounds, for any kind of portrait situation. As I said, I'm always shooting with a hair light as well as my primary light on my subject, because I like the glow it gives, I like the way it highlights the hair, I like the halo effect that it has, and separation, which is nice. I mentioned before that I might only use one flash when I'm shooting outside. That's because when you shoot outside, you position your subject so that the sun acts as your hair light. Remember, the sun, because of its distance, if you remember our discussion on specularity, The sun is a very specular small light source, and when we take the flash, we put a grid on it and we make that into a small specular light source. So we use the two in the same way because the two are the same type of light, so you would use them in the same position in a studio setup. So when you work outside, the subject always faces away from the sun. Sun is used as a hair light, like the front of the subject. When they're in the studio, we light the subject, we create the hair light. That is what I have for you today. I hope that you've enjoyed this and learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel to learn more studio tips and tricks, and I'll see you next time. Bye.